Welcome back. Today we're diving deep into the Tafsir, the interpretation, of Surah Al-Qari'ah. This is the 101st chapter of the Quran. And for this journey, our guide is going to be the really detailed exegesis from Ayatollah Javadi Amoli. We're going to try to really understand all the layers of meaning inside this incredibly powerful and profound text.
Right from the get-go, the surah doesn't start with a statement. Instead, it hits you with these thunderous, insistent questions. It's a serious warning about the day of resurrection, and these first few lines, well, they grab your full attention immediately. They set this incredibly solemn and powerful tone for everything that's about to come.
So to really unpack this powerful chapter, we're going to walk through 6 key themes. We'll start with the reality of the event itself and go all the way to the metaphysics of the final judgment. Okay? Let's get into it. So first up, we're going to unpack the name of the surah itself, Al-Qari'ah, and we'll explore just how much weight and gravity is packed into those opening rhetorical questions. So the name Al-Qari'ah, it comes from the root qari', which means to strike or to knock. But we're not talking about a gentle tap here. This is a cataclysmic, world-shattering blow. The name itself signals an event so incredibly powerful that it's meant to strike terror into our hearts and just completely shatter our entire idea of reality. Now, you've got to notice the structure here. The Quran doesn't just ask, what is it? It immediately follows up with, and what will make you know what it is? The exegesis points out that this isn't just a lack of words. No, this is a very deliberate technique to really emphasize how unimaginable this event truly is. It's really a profound way of saying that this event is beyond anything we've experienced in this world, beyond any language we have. It's like it's saying, no matter what you think you know, no matter what comparison you can come up with, you just cannot truly grasp the full scale of this day until it's right there in front of you. The language is specifically designed to create a sense of awe, an immense gravity. So after establishing that this event is just completely beyond our comprehension, the surah then paints this really vivid picture of the physical world totally breaking down, and it uses 2 really powerful similes to show us the scene. The very first image it gives us describes the state of humanity on that day. It puts the focus on us, on the human condition, when we're faced with this overwhelming reality. كالفراش المبثوث. And, this isn't some random choice of insect. The analysis shows that the specific characteristics of a moth are used here on purpose to get across a much, much deeper meaning about our state. So, see, this isn't just about things being chaotic. It's a really precise diagnosis of the human condition. People will be completely bewildered, just wandering around aimlessly with no purpose. They'll be weak, totally powerless, and, this is the tragic part, like moths drawn to a flame, they are pulled by instinct toward their own destruction, with no idea of the danger they're in. Now, the second image, it shifts focus. It moves from humanity to the most solid, permanent, imposing things on Earth, the mountains. And here again, this specific wording is so important. Al-idn refers to dyed wool, and al-manfush means it's been carded or teased apart until it's super light and fluffy. This creates a very specific, very intentional image of complete disintegration. This contrast paints an incredibly powerful picture of the natural order being turned completely upside down. The things we see as totally unshakable and permanent, they're going to be made utterly weightless, just torn apart and scattered like little bits of wool in the wind. When you put these 2 images together, you get a scene of total cosmic and social collapse. All right, so with that apocalyptic scene set so vividly, the focus of the surah takes a dramatic turn. It pivots from all that cosmic chaos to individual accountability. It goes from the universal to the deeply personal. And this brings us to a really critical question right at the heart of this section. When the surah talks about mawazin, or scales, are we supposed to be imagining literal scales, like something you'd see in a marketplace? Well, the interpretation immediately tells us to think beyond the physical. We're moving into the metaphysical here. These aren't scales for counting up how many good deeds you did versus how many bad deeds. The concept is so much more profound than that. It's about measuring the qualitative weight, the spiritual gravity and substance of your entire existence. And to back up this metaphysical idea, the text points to another part of the Quran, and it explicitly says that the standard of measurement, the weight itself, is al-haq. And that means truth, reality, righteousness. This right here is the cornerstone of the entire judgment.
So this creates the central split. A person's life isn't just audited, it's assayed, like testing a metal for its purity. Deeds aren't just counted, they're weighed for their intrinsic truth. So heavy deeds, those are the ones that are rooted in sincerity, in real spiritual substance, while the light deeds, those are the ones based on falsehood and hypocrisy. They're ultimately just empty with no real weight to them at all. This whole concept of the scales then leads directly to two starkly different paths that come from this judgment, and there is no middle ground. First, the surah describes the fate of those people whose lives had that true spiritual weight, the ones whose actions and beliefs were in line with al-haq, the truth. The term used, isha radiyah, is incredibly rich with meaning. It's not just a reward, it's a state of being. The word radiyah implies this mutual contentment. The person is pleased with their new life, and their new reality is pleasing to them. It's described as a life of pure spirit, totally free from all the pains of our mortal existence. And now, we get this stark contrast. For those whose lives were spiritually weightless, whose deeds were empty of substance and truth, well, their outcome is described with this terrifying and deeply symbolic phrase. Okay, now we're going to explore one of the most powerful and frankly unsettling concepts in the whole surah, the nature of Hawiyah, and why on earth this abyss is called one's mother. The name itself, Hawiyah, comes from a root that means to fall or to plunge. It really gives you this sense of a bottomless pit, of an eternal, terrifying fall into nothingness. But this is where we get this profound and disturbing metaphor. The Quran doesn't just say the sinner goes to the abyss. It says the abyss will be their their mother. Now, the exegesis gives us two layers of interpretation for this. The main interpretation is this. Hell isn't just a place of punishment. It becomes the sinner's only reality, their only point of reference. Just like a child instinctively runs to its mother for safety, this person will have no other reality to turn to. Hell will embrace them as their final, inescapable home. And then the surah wraps up this point using that same powerful rhetorical question from the beginning to define what this abyss is. It's not some metaphorical fire. It is narun hamiyah, a scorching, intensely hot fire, a reality that is beyond any comparison in this world. This brings out a core concept in this interpretation. Hell isn't just some external punishment. It is the ultimate, direct consequence of a person's own actions and beliefs. The false gods and empty ideas they worshipped in life, those stones, they become the very fuel for their fire, along with the person themselves. In a very real sense, they create their own hell. And finally, the exegesis digs into the deeper metaphysical principles that are holding up this entire vision of judgment. It touches on big concepts like the transformation of reality and the true nature of intercession. This verse right here makes a critical point. The Day of Judgment isn't just another day in time. It is a complete transformation of being, of reality itself. The very fabric of the cosmos will be replaced by a new one, where all those inner truths are brought out into the open. The text confirms the idea of intercession, or shafa'ah, but it frames it very carefully. This is not some get-out-of-jail-free card. It's a form of divine grace that still operates within the strict laws of spiritual reality. It can't just be given to anyone. It requires a genuine, pre-existing spiritual link, a real compatibility between the one who's interceding and the one who needs it. So it doesn't violate justice, it's actually a higher form of it. This incredibly powerful verse from another surah shows us that hell is not some passive place. It's an active, conscious, and insatiable reality. It's a spiritual force that is constantly looking for more fuel, which is a direct consequence of all the falsehoods and denial that feed it. And so we end with this final thought. If, as this interpretation argues, the hereafter isn't a system of external rewards and punishments, but is actually the inevitable crystallization of our own inner reality, well then, the most urgent question becomes, what gives a life true substance? What makes up the genuine weight that will tip the scales on that striking day? That is the question Surah Al-Qari'ah leaves us to think about.